Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy. The own and any occupation stages of your disability insurance policy or plan and why skills matter. Now, getting your own ERISA disability benefits isn't easy at the own occupation stage of your claim. Many policies or plans are going to be looking first at your own occupation and then ultimately at your ability to do any occupation. In the any occupation stage, the test is different, if you will, than the own occupation stage. So let's break this down. At the own occupation stage, the test is generally whether you can perform the material and substantial duties of the occupation you had when you became disabled. Now, that's not the only definition of disabled or occupation. So you need to get your disability policy or plan out and read it cover to cover so you understand what the applicable definition is of your own occupation. That could be the occupation as you perform it for your employer, in the local economy, in the national economy, pursuant to the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. You also need to understand what it is the standard is in terms of your ability to do that occupation. Is it an inability to do the material and substantial duties of the occupation? The inability to do all of the material and substantial duties in occupation, inability to do the important duties of the occupation. There are all sorts of variations, but you need to understand that because obviously things are going to be important as that definition of disability changes. So instead of asking, can you do your old occupation, the policy is going to shift to, can you do any occupation that you're reasonably qualified for based on your education, your past work, your occupational skills, and your medical restrictions and limitations. Now, this is where the carriers really start dissecting your past. They're going to examine every part of your employment history to determine whether you have the skills that could be used elsewhere. It's called transferable skills. When you apply for your disability benefits, one of the forms you're going to be asked to fill out is a job or occupation history form that will ask you questions about your occupational history, the skills that you've learned, the equipment that you've learned, classes that you may have taken. They're going to update that when the definition of disability changes from your own occupation to any occupation. So if you see that form come along in your mail, you know that they're starting to do analysis of any occupation stage. So let me give you an example here. Let's say you're a warehouse manager, and at first glance, you might think that this job is purely physical, stocking, lifting, bending, running inventory, maybe even operating forklifts. But when carriers look deeper, they just don't see the labor. They see supervision. They see scheduling, budgeting, training, problem solving, and leadership. They see skills that they are going to argue are transferable to other occupations, notwithstanding any problems that you have, physical limitations that you have. Let's say you've injured your back. You can't stand for long periods. You can't lift heavy items, and you can't sit for too long because it's painful. You're positive that you can't go back to the warehouse. But the carrier says, oh, but wait a second. This person can't run a forklift anymore, but they can still sit at a desk. They can manage employees. They can analyze spreadsheets. They can do orders. You can still be a manager. Any occupation stage, they may say, well, you may not be a manager in a warehouse, but you could be a manager in a bank or a call center or even a mortgage office, even though you don't have that experience. So here's the trap. Carriers focus less on what you can't do physically and more on what you've proven that you can do intellectually or managerially. So unless your medical records or restrictions document the way that any of your restrictions and limitations impact your ability to do those kinds of things, the carriers are going to argue that you're still employable because you have transferable skills. So that's why understanding how your skills are perceived and how they might be twisted is really essential. The own and any occupation stages just aren't about a medical condition. It's about the work history and transferable skills that intersect with your medical condition. Exactly at the end of the day, what skills have you learned by virtue of your past work or experience that are not transferable to any other occupations? That's the key to winning your case. Got it? Let's take a break.